Are you negotiating or are you compromising? And I think a lot of agents really misunderstand that.
Love to dive into a bit of role play. Would you mind?
Bring it. So when you get significantly less, it doesn't just affect you, it affects my reputation going forward. And I'd rather lose a listing for the right reasons than win a listing for the wrong reasons. Busy is like devil word to me, right? I hate that word. Busy means whatever I'm doing is more important.
You're not a priority.
My vendors like me more for the offers I tell them not to take than the ones I tell them to take. They know that last 25 grand, there's nearly nothing in it, but you still went and got it anyway. And they'll go and tell 20 people about you because of that 25 grand. There's your prospecting. The negotiation starts the minute you have...
Agents, welcome to the Get Keen podcast, your number one destination for learning how to get the most out of your real estate career. I'm Dan Lee, founder of Plum Property, one of Queensland's largest independent real estate offices, and Plum Partners, where we've helped dozens of agents create, run and grow their very own agencies. On Get Keen, I chat to high-performing agents, principals, and agency owners, so you have the tools, strategies, and insights to grow your business and live the best life for yourself and your family. Now let's get keen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with Get Keen. I hope you're excited wherever you're listening to this, eating your breakfast, in the car, on the way to work, about to make some calls, maybe in the bath or something creepy like that. I don't care. You want to learn? You came to the right place. Get Keen is where we get the best guests in real estate who have been a massive success in what they do. And today, no exception to the rule, we have a man who is the recent REIQ Salesperson of the Year in Queensland. He does over $100 million in sales a year. He's had countless awards. He's been an agent for over 20 years. He's now a business owner, selling principal. This guy knows how to list and sell. I'm talking about my man, Tristan Rowland. Thanks for coming on the show, buddy.
Very kind of you.
Mate, you had to get a big intro because you've done a lot. Right? You've been around a long time.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel a grey hair on my head now as I'm getting children of my clients ringing me saying, we need to sell our property. And I'm like, no, you're still in primary school. And having to talk about the olden times like print and the Gemini era and all these wonderful things and trying to explain it. So yeah, it's quite funny. So
being in the industry a long time now and, you know, you're in a competitive area, what do you reckon makes you stand out amongst all the crowd?
It's funny. Like, obviously, I was over here back in the day before I decided to go onto the north side, and that was a pretty big shift from my point of view. But I wanted to go home. I grew up on the north side, and I said, if I'm going to open an office up, I want to do it where I was. Born and raised in the area. I think the same rule there applies to here, which is that if you're actually just a good person and you have hyper vendor connection, you actually really connect with not just from hey Dan, you get along really well with me. That connection I'm talking about. Do you actually care where they're coming from, what they're doing, why they're doing it, what that extra 20 or 30 grand is going to mean for them? You can walk into any suburb in Brisbane and still do well. You know.
How can you create that connection?
Oh, geez. It's like, so we look at John who works for me. So John came from doing 7 sales a year to now he does about 50 to 60 a year. And I said to him, you're a great guy, but you're an okay agent. But you need to learn how to make, yourself a great agent as well. Because I consult to people who are good agents, but not particularly good people, or the successful agents. It's easy to turn a great person into a great agent. It's hard to turn a bad person into a great agent. Turn them into a successful one, but there's a lot of agents that are just in and out and volumetric. And so how do you become that? Well, first you have to be a decent human being. I spoke at something a while ago and I said, ask yourself the question, would you list with you? Or would you give your mum's house to sell to you? And it's a really sobering question if you answer it honestly. Because I think a lot of agents that go, oh, well, no, I roll in at 11 o'clock on a Monday before I even start my callbacks or whatever. And what level of intensity are you giving to your day-to-day? And when I think most agents fall apart on listing a property or fee is that when the vendor goes, why should I give it to you? Or, what's your fee? They're like, oh, well, and, the wobble in their voice, the lack of conviction is where they fall apart. But if you actually really come to work, not for the money, but if you come to work for the people you work for and the change that you can make in their life, and forget all the awards and all that kind of stuff, but if you do that, then you're going to do very, very well. I always say to people all the time when I list a property, it's very hard to beat an agent down when they're on the vendor's side, not their sign, their side. And when you really align with the client and vice versa, if they've got your back and they're going to give you the tools and the backing, some pretty magical results happen.
How do they know that you're on their side?
My vendors like me more for the offers I tell them not to take than the ones I tell them to take. Probably clients who are probably 13 or 14 sales in with me, ones over 30 sales in with me. So if I say in week one, hey, we need to grab this, they know I mean we need to grab this. Because I've had another one where we probably said on that same vendor, we've said, no, 11 weeks in, no, we're not done yet. We'll still get more. And most agents don't really appreciate the ripple effect of saying to a vendor, you know what, 1.38 is pretty good, but I think we get a little bit more than that. And then 3 weeks later, selling it for 1.405. Now, the 25 grand in commission, particularly if you're doing, offer split and then ATO split and everything else, you're probably going, oh, yeah, okay. But that's not what you should be worried about. That 25 grand, because vendors are not stupid. Agents talk to vendors like they don't get it or they don't understand the mathematics of it, right? They know that last 25 grand, there's nearly nothing in it, but you still went and got it anyway. And they'll go and tell 20 people about you because of that 25 grand. There's your prospecting, just nailing the current one you're on. So when John came to me, I said, mate, the best thing you can do is just smash the current one you've got out of the park. The rest will sort itself out. I said, don't worry about door knocking and prospecting. And I'm not saying these things don't need to be done, but I'm saying when you got one, absolutely ring it to death. And the first property he took off the number one agent in his area, former number one agent in his area, and he sold it for 40 grand over what she had it listed at. And it just exploded from there from him. So just be good at what you do.
You talked about fee before, how agents quiver when they're asked about fee.
Yep.
What fee do you charge?
My base fee is 3.7%, including GST.
3.7?
Yep.
3.7? That's the highest I've heard.
Yeah, I get that from pretty much everyone I speak to within the industry.
Okay.
Yep.
Because standard's around 2.5. So you 1.5 times.
So this is my thing. Like, I always laugh because there's no such thing as a standard fee anymore, right? There's an average fee, for example, but the REIQ's got rid of the standard, no longer prescribed. And when deregulation came in, I was very excited for that because we were 100% list ratio, unless we didn't want one. We're probably 99.9. We knew we were winning them, and I try to explain to people, it's a bit like football. We knew we were getting the 2 points. We walk in, we get them. We just didn't know how big the differential was. Were we beat them by plus 30 or were we just getting across the line? So as soon as commission deregulated, I went from 2.5 to 3.5. And we were still winning them with no pushback. And so we went to 3.7. And we've had other ones at higher fees. I've got 4.5% at the moment.
So how do you compete against agents that, are at, if average is 2.5, which it certainly is in this area.
Yep.
Other agents that you're competing against that have some decent results, they may not have as many results as you, but they're doing okay. Yeah. And they're 2.5 and you're 3.75. How do you compete in a listing presentation showing that you're worth that?
Okay, so there's a few parts to it. So evidence is so key, right? And a lot of agents just like to talk, and there's a lot of talk, but they're not actually backing up what they're saying. And the way I'm, articulating this to vendors, I'm not going in and going, I'm awesome and blah, blah, blah. The stories are big. Giving case studies, right? Here's what we did and this is et cetera, et cetera. And obviously reviews, some of our reviews say 200 grand of what the other agent said was possible, right? So average is easy to get, right? But I think you got to have the vendor understand the agent's motivations, what they're actually going to do for that fee. And look, there's some agents in my area go, that was a good result. I should go off and text an agent from a rival brand if they get a good result and go, hey, that was a great result. I say to vendors, great agents don't annoy me, the bad ones do, because the good ones will lift the whole area up, because the more we sell stuff for, the more we all get paid, the more the vendor gets paid. Like, imagine if we all just pumped each other's listings up. Where would the industry be, right? But for me, it's articulating that value through what we do. So I've got an EBU team, and for me, that's a big part of why we're able to charge the fee we do. That being said, if I was by myself, I'd still be over 3 every day of the week, every day of the week. But you've got to use case studies of examples where that's a difference. And someone said to me that, but the other agent said they're going to do exactly what you do for 2.5%. And I said, okay, I'm yet to master the ability to be in 6 different places at once. I'm pretty good, but there's not 6 of me out there. The world's not ready for 2 of me, my wife would say, right? And if I could do that, I'd have one full-time at home folding washing. So what goes missing, and this is the one thing I try and if I'm a young agent, if I'm week 1 in real estate, I'd be saying, the good thing, I got one listing, which means that I got nothing to do but chase to death your buyers, because the number one thing that goes missing at 2.something% is the buyer work, is the buyer service. And the problem for me is that the difference between buyer A, B, C, D on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday can be 100 or 200 grand. But if they just go, 10 o'clock, Saturday, open home, see you there. And I actually say to vendors all the time, I dare you, I actually challenge you and implore you to secret shop the agent you're talking to as a buyer off a phone number they don't have. Oh boy, that one hurts, right? Because then there's truth to what they're saying, or there's dishonesty to what they're saying. And for me, having two prosecutors as parents, my whole childhood was like a cross-examination, right? And it's all evidence-based. I could never win an argument unless I was like, well, this is, here's the evidence and it's all truthful and swear me in. So that's really important to be able to say, well, what are you actually doing? And it's great all to say, but what are they going to do? What are they not going to do? And like I've said, look, sometimes our agents get great results, but we're not sometimes, we're always.
What can a buyer expect calling one of your team?
So the biggest thing is I handle 99.9% of the buyer inquiries. So the only thing my guys do from a buyer side at the moment is triaging, because how many email inquiries do you get in realestate.com where it's like just an email?
Yeah.
And it's actually funny how many agents pretend to be buyers. And it's even more funny that we've actually worked out which ones are which. Because like you inquired a $300,000 unit and a $3.5 million house.
Yeah.
Doesn't line up, right? And so triaging those buyer inquiries is really big. And my guys do a great job of that. And then as soon as we've got contact details and a bit of a short list, they send it through to me and people go, oh, you want to talk to me? And I think the biggest challenge, the better you do, the harder it is to have people want to feel like they can approach you. Like buyers go, oh, but you're so busy. And I hate that word. Busy is like devil word to me, right? Busy means whatever I'm doing is more important than you.
Yeah.
Like when you rang me, like
you're not a priority.
Yeah. Like for me, it's a case of I got lots going on. Yeah, we sell more than anybody because we're doing more work than anybody. We're doing more inspections than anybody. It's funny, right? The more you open up the shop door, the more buyers you meet.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, it's a matter of when the buyer brings up, we're going to have a really good conversation. And one of the advantages of having an EB or a team is that someone rings me up, they go, oh, hey, Tristan, let's say it's under contract. Most agents are like, it's under contract, bang, like get out of my face. Can't get off the phone fast enough. Hey, look, it is under contract. I'm really sorry to say. Okay, yeah, cool, but what are you looking for? You want to talk to me? I did a bunch of videos for our vendors the other day, a training set of videos to actually explain out to our vendors how the process works. And my videographer said, mate, your promo should just be the phone calls that you took while you were on the phone. Yeah. We're like, you're the only agent that wants to talk to me in the area. You're the only agent that didn't go, it's under contract, slam. It's going to auction, 10 o'clock Saturday, can't talk anything, slam. Like, and what you learn about a buyer, and for someone who's taught 4 different courses in negotiation, the negotiation starts the minute you have contact with that person, not when they're at the open home, not when they pick up an offer form, the minute you have contact. And they'll divulge so much to you between Wednesday and Saturday if you actually make the effort to talk to them.
So you'll find out their real position.
Yeah, but not even find listings. I mean, it's fascinating to me. I had one young guy who didn't actually buy a property through me, but I spent a whole bunch of time on the phone with him. And I said, hey, mate, I think this one's was under contract, fell over. It's not my listing, but I reckon you should go buy that. And he bought it. And his mum rings me up out of nowhere. And she's like, hi, Tristan. I said, hello. And she goes, do you sell in Ascot? I said, yeah, if I need to, yeah. And she goes, we have 6 houses, our family in Ascot. We'll sell them all through you. We used to sell through an agent, but the way he treated my son was disgusting. You're the only agent in Brisbane that gave my son the time of day and you actually helped him buy a house. So, yeah, all our business is yours. And I just feel like Stephen Bradbury skating across the finish line. Okay. And that's not an area I chase at all.
Yeah.
Right. For me, it doesn't do much for me because I like to really fundamentally change someone's life. And I was joking, if I get an extra $500,000 to someone in Wavell, they retire early, they have another baby, they can start their own business. If I get an extra $500,000 to someone in Ascot, it means the Maserati's a bit nicer or the Ferrari's got a bit of sunroof, right? But for me, getting that phone call, it just makes me shake my head. The bar is set very low in our industry.
Okay. Yeah. Well, mate, it sounds like like the way you're servicing buyers is one of your keys to success. All right. But I'd love to dive into a bit of role play, actually.
Yeah, right.
Would you mind?
I'll bring it. So
okay.
I love it.
Okay. So because this really interests me, your fee, 3.7%. Mm-hmm. I'm sure most agents listening are going, what the hell? I mean, unless you're out in those really regional areas where property prices are sort of like 300, 400 grand, they have to have minimum 3% out that way to make it work. But, in a city with, your median house price probably $1 million, that's like 3.7 is much higher than the average. So let's do a bit of role play. I'm a seller.
Yep.
You're in my living room. We've known each other for a couple of years, but I'm getting a couple of agents in. But I do like you. I've worked with you. I know who you are. I know you've got some results. But we're going through the presentation. By the way, where do you talk about the commission? At the start or the end or the middle?
Normally at the end.
Yeah.
And I got to say, I've had people come to presentations with me, both agents that want to learn. And like, if anybody ever wants to ring me and go, hey, T, can I just ride shotgun with you for a couple of hours one day? I'm happy to do that.
Right, we'll put Tristan's number in the show notes.
I'm not hard to find. Just Google me.
And then
all those videos.
Actually, just Google Tristan Rowland Real Estate. You'll be able to find him. But we'll put his number in the show notes and his handles for Instagram so you can message him. But we're going to role play at a listing presentation talking about, the commission. So we've been through the house price. I'm kind of satisfied with what you've told me there. The CMA, you've told me about, we're going to go to, we're going to put it on at a offers over price. Or no price. Yep. We've talked about that and everything else. And we're getting in the commission. So all that sounds really good, Tristan. So what commission do you charge?
So I normally get how much you charge a with fee.
So how much is the fee?
We're free.
You're free.
Yep. Because I can literally show you time after time after time where the difference in price we're achieving is 10, 15% more than anybody else, like for properties like yours, and we've already covered a few of those today. People have got to say, what do you guys cost, right? And I said, too bloody much, right? And look, for me, Dan, the reason why I say that is my job is to be free. Anybody can charge you 2% and clip you like the ATO on the way through and not really do too much for that. The fee for myself and my team is 3.7%, including GST, right? And I say myself and my team because it's not just me, right? And I know some people go, wow, that's so much more than the average. Well, it's actually 1%, right? Maybe a little percent.
Yeah, it is a bit more like the other agent that came in. He's only 2.5%.
Yep. And see, for me, I go, gee, that's high. For one person, where you can have one person open home, you're not getting everybody taking people's details on the door. I'm not going to be able to qualify people properly when they come into the open home. They're only going to probably do one open home on a Saturday, whereas we always do two. So we're getting two swings of the bat, which is big, especially when, as we talked about before, the average inspection time for a buyer in the afternoon is 17 minutes and 20 seconds at our open home. Like I can't stand morning buyers, 3 minutes and 42 seconds in the morning, So you're going to get double the buyers. You're going to get a lot more attention to them for that. I think 2.5% to have one person working on a listing is a very, very high fee, especially with the increase in prices in Queensland. I mean, we've had almost doubling in prices, right? But that isn't just for me, that fee. There is an entire team behind that.
Okay. So, all right. It just seems a bit, are you negotiable on that?
Look, I've always said this, and this is what I have never charged a fee because no one actually charges a fee up front. If you're paying me up front right now, let's hash it out right now, but we're actually not. All I'm asking for is a chance to earn that fee. But here's where most vendors don't actually understand the power they have in the relationship. I can't make you sign a contract of sale. So at the point of sale, if you don't think I am worth that fee, I will happily sit back down with you and we'll discuss that. Right? Maybe write that at the agency agreement. It's there anyway, lawfully. But I'll happily discuss that. But it's not a conversation I have with people. And
hey guys, just quickly, if you're loving this content and you're a real estate agent that's already thinking what it might be like to have your own real estate business and brand, then check out the show notes. There'll be a link to our Plum Partners website where you can leave an inquiry and me or one of my team members will reach out. We help agents to create, run, and grow their own real estate business and brand so they can earn more and set up a better future for themselves. So get keen, get in touch. Now let's get back to the episode.
Can I ask you a question? If we were too expensive at that fee and everyone was getting even similar results, right? Because, we're talking an extra percent, right? Do you think we would not be priced out of the market tomorrow by our competition?
If what? I didn't understand the question.
So if we were not worth every dollar of that fee and everyone else is charging 2.5, which is actually high compared to the one guys I find at 1.9 to about 2 point something, they'll go to 1.5 if you tell them you're about to give it to us.
Yeah.
But do you think if they were doing exactly what we're doing for that fee, we would not be priced out of the market immediately? We wouldn't be number one by a very big margin. We'd be priced out of the market, yeah?
You've got a point. I mean, you do a lot of business.
But if BMW came out right now and said we're matching Kia on prices, how long do you reckon Kia would be in business for?
Yeah, well, they would struggle.
Or would you go, what's missing now in the BMW?
Yeah, well, I would wonder.
Yeah,
I would wonder.
There's two lines of thought, right? They're not going BMW.org. They're not a charity, right?
Yeah.
So either there's something massive missing. And in my experience, the number one thing missing with an agent at that level is the buyer work, because that's the one thing you cannot quantify, qualify, or really monitor, right? Like if you said to the agent, can I sit in the office and watch you do callbacks? And I've actually said to vendors, like who I've sold for a lot of agents, do you want to write shotgun and just watch me do the callbacks? And they get rid, because I'm 100% transparent. I quite often screenshot messages from buyers and send it to my owners and go, this is what they've said. I'll forward on voicemails. I love being able to forward on voicemails from my visual voicemail.
Yeah.
Because people can hear the tonality behind it. But that's the number one thing that goes missing, right? And if you said to me, Tristan, we don't really care about that, yeah, sure, okay, we can match that because I've got a lot less work to do in my world. But I'd rather just lose a business, because for me, I'm not going to miss that extra 100 grand, because every time when it doesn't result in the right outcome and when you get significantly less, it doesn't just affect you, it affects my reputation going forward. And I'd rather lose a listing for the right reasons than win a listing for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Personally.
So you do lose sometimes because of it?
I walk away from probably 1 in every 5 we meet.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm okay with that because I'd rather turn you down than let you down, right? If you say, Tristan, it's 2.5 or nothing, then I have to go back to 5 other people and go, I need to bench you for this one. And they're going to go, why? And that just doesn't align with who I am. All I'm asking for is a chance to earn my fee. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, if I think you, I mean, we talked about $1 million. If you got me 1.1, I'll pay you 3.7.
All I have to do is cover, so if I get $1,050,000, I've covered my entire fee. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Great. So I'm happy to put that down, saying let's have a go. Because I'm very confident in what I do, right? You know, I know I've got an amazing team behind me. I know my area inside out. I'm very confident. I'm happy to put that, if we get that level, then we get our fee at that. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, if you could get me that, I'll pay you 3.7.
Okay, great. Now, can I ask you a question? Did the other agent ask for any incentivization whatsoever to go above 2.5%?
No. Well, I sort of said that 2.5 was sort of what I'd been quoted, and they said that their fee was around that.
How good's that? So whether they sell your place for $1 million or 700,000, whether they absolutely botch it or absolutely smash it out of the park, they're guaranteed that fee.
Yeah.
What a good deal. Like I can send my 9-year-old here for that. I mean, he'll do it for $5,000. That's a lot of Pokemon cards, and he's a good negotiator, right? Like to pay someone $25,000, whether they absolutely nail it or absolutely butcher it, is just mind blowing to me. I had an agent the other day said, "Well, vendor, we normally charge $3, but for you, we'll do it for 2.2." And I laughed and I said, "Go to that agent's agency and say, show me your other agency agreements at 3%." Because and anybody doesn't believe I charge this fee, come to my office, I'll literally whip out every single agency agreement on my books right now and show you that fee. And see, facts don't lie, but agents do, right? And the numbers don't lie, but agents do. At least they've told you up front, no matter what happens here, there is no reason for me to have a crack over $1 million. I'm not going to go for 1.1. I'm not going to go for 1.2. And the reality of it is that level, they really can't go for more than a few weeks. The reason why Purple Bricks collapsed over here, what are they doing, like $6,000 or something like that? So after 3 or 4 days, they're like, too hard. They're not going to grind it out.
But what if we go on the market with you, you're both confident. The other agent said that they're confident for $1 million. You said you're confident for $1 million. I'd love if you can get me $1,050,000, yeah. Mm-hmm. But if we go on the market at 3.7, I'm locked in with you for 90 days. Mm-hmm. And then we come on the market and we're not getting $1,050,000, I'm not going to be happy about that.
Okay. So first of all, you're not locked in for 90 days in Queensland. It's actually 30 and 30. So at 30 days, you can give me 30 days notice if you didn't like me. I'd rather release you, in all honesty. And I've said to many vendors before, if you truly think we're all full of it, which 90% of the industry, you're probably right, I'll just do a 45-day agency. Challenge the other agents to that, 45 days. Because at 45 days, I'm doing my job, you're not going to sack me, yeah? Like if you know I've got your back.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, okay, great. So I'd love to hear what the other agent would say to that. So they go, we can't put you in the meat grinder in that time because it's not a chance to move you on very quickly. But for me, if we don't get that fee, and like I've had a couple where I've actually had vendors go, I want to go with the much lower offer than the one that you've got because of terms or whatever, which is fine. Well, we shouldn't be penalised for that. That's fair, yeah? Like I had a vendor who took a 1.2 over a 1.4, and as an agent who worked very hard to get that 1.4, you go, but they need those terms so they could buy a $2.5 million house, and the terms are what got them that house, right? My question, though, is that do you think if we at least get that price, you'd be happy to pay it? And you're saying yes, right?
Yeah.
If I was not being flexible on fee, if I was simply saying, no way, too bad, so sad, we're at $1 million and we're now still charging you 3.7, I'd be obliterated in the market. People would be bashing me left, right, and centre. Right. I'd have scalding reviews. He wasn't flexible on fee, even though he didn't live up to the hype. I mean, it's very hard. You know, I actually asked Maxine Horn years ago, who owned Phone Zone. I said, why do you think everyone doesn't charge the same fee as me? Because they all know what I charge. And she said, it's very easy to be cheap and disappointing. It's a lot harder to be expensive and live up to the hype. And I went, that's a good point.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So all literally all I have to do is get 1% more and I've covered the differential before you start making really clean profit. Do you truly believe with the information I've shown you today, I can't get one more percent than the other agent?
Yeah, well, you're very confident about it.
You know why? Because it's not guessing or hope work. It's literally that. But do you think I can get 1% more? And honestly, if you say no, I'm probably going to get up and walk out because with everything else we do, with 5 other human beings on my team who do an amazing job, surely we can get 1% more.
Okay. What do you reckon agents can do? This is off the role play now.
Yep,
what can agents do to become better negotiators? You've obviously got a lot of good scripts and dialogues there. Are there any course materials or books you'd suggest?
Oh, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
Yeah.
No, I actually got to meet Chris years ago.
Yeah.
It's the funniest thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah.
When he came over here from overseas. So interesting.
So that's the book, Never Split the Difference.
by Chris Voss.
Yeah.
Right. So Chris was a top FBI hostage negotiator.
Yeah. Okay.
Funniest thing. So, hostage negotiation is very different, right? And I always laugh the whole thing of how agents carry on when they make a sale, right? They do it. Don't see a fish and chip shop saying boom hashtag flathead. People misinterpret what's the word for it? They misunderstand the word negotiate versus compromise. Most agents are not negotiators; they're compromisers. So vendor wants 1.4, buyers at 1.2, but will negotiate. No, you'll compromise at 1.3. That is a compromise, right? You negotiate a racetrack. Compromising would be cutting across halfway through it, right? Being you don't come off the sides of it. So, imagine a hostage negotiator who said, all right, you got 10 hostages. Here's the deal. You kill 5, I keep 5. Boom, hashtag FBI, right?
Yeah.
Like, what? Right? Sorry to the 5 people whose dad just got shot, right? And they have a much harder negotiation than us because it's like, you've got money and I've got a great house and that's what we're going to both be transferring to each other. The hostage negotiator has to say, look, here's the deal. You're going to get nothing of what you want. You're going to get all the hostages back and you go get to live in a 2-meter jail cell in Guantanamo for the next 10 years. Like, what? Like, if he said, have a Hamptons house, he'd be like, oh, screw the jihad, have it. No, I'm out, man.
Yeah.
Like this is the insanity of what we do. So are you negotiating or are you compromising? And I think a lot of agents really misunderstand that. And when you explain this to vendors, they go, you know what, you're right. And I had a really interesting experience back in 2016. So I cracked my head open really badly on the back of our car and I had short-term memory loss for 8 weeks. Couldn't work.
Oh, wow.
I was really, really, really badly concussed. Like, even now, if I get a head knock, I get fuzzy for a few days. Poor old John, who just started working, we got a baptism of fire because he got thrown into a board of 15 listings or 17 listings it was, when he was running as a co-agent with me at the time. And I couldn't work. And anyway, he did a great job. But I learnt a really sobering experience. When I came back, I missed 7 listings in a row. And I remember ringing Aaron Bongiorno, who is is principal of one of the Stone offices down in Sydney, but he was actually like top sales manager for McGrath. He was my sales manager when I used to work in place. And I rang Bongo, and he's like my phone a friend when things are not going right, which is pretty rare these days. But I just said, I don't think I've missed 7 listings in a year, Bongo, let alone 7 in a row in the same week. Like, I was sitting there in the fetal position in the office going, what the hell? And he said, right, talk to me through what you're doing. And I spoke, and he went, stop. And he said, I've already worked out what's going wrong. And I said, okay. And he said, mate, you're rolling in like you're the big dog with 30 listings and you're number one. And he said, you've lost so much presence and profile in that 8 weeks of being away that you're not where you were when you went off boil for 8 weeks. And he said, forget that. He said, just get back to bare knuckle negotiating. Like, act like you're a first week real estate agent like you did when you came into the industry, but you have all that negotiation power. And I role play all the time with vendors in presentations about negotiation all the time. Vendors are the easiest people in the world to negotiate up, but it's funny.
You role play with them in the listing presentation?
All the time.
So what would you say? You're in a listing presentation, say, hey, let's role play it.
Yep, great. And this is for every new salesperson out there, take this away from this, right? So, it's funny because you said, do you want to role play, right?
Yeah.
Most agents, when you say that, they go,
Yeah.
John, who works for me, black belt, 7th Dan Taekwondo, black belt Zendo Kai, right?
Yeah.
We say, if you don't like sparring, but you think you're going to be good in the street, you're about to get a really big reality check one day, right? You're going to spar inside the gym, right? So the vendor says to me, Tristan, we're all great negotiators. Everyone's told you're a great negotiator. Yep. Has anybody actually shown you? And they go, no. And I always say, right, so you're going to trust a real estate agent on their word. That's a very bold strategy. I'd love to see how this works out, right? So they're not actually going to show you how they negotiate, right? Can I show you? And they go, yeah. We'd love that.
Yeah.
So, Dan, let's say, and there's multiple ways I negotiate because there's 6 different psychologies of buyers, and I could talk about this forever, right? But I'm just going to give you a very basic one that any agent in Australia can pick up tomorrow and use, right? So, Dan, you're going to make an offer, and let's say the vendor wants $1 million, right? And you're going to go, look, I like it, but I'm going to offer you 900. Right? Cool. Dan, really appreciate your offer. Never backhand a buyer for an offer, right? Because if you put sort of spite in the relationship, it's very hard to mediate it, right? So, look, I really appreciate your offer. At 900,000, the vendor's going to say, hey, Tristan, what do you reckon, right? And I'm going to have to say to them, look, guys, based on the inquiry we've had so far, there's no way I could tell you to take that right now before the weekend because we're going to go off on Saturday, right? So, based on the fact I'm going to tell the owner not to take that offer, what would your next offer be? And then shut up.
Yeah.
And you know how many buyers go, that's not supposed to happen. You're supposed to get it and go whack, whack, whack on the vendor's head and smack them with it and go, all right. And great. Guess what? They come back and go, great news. I got the vendor down. They're at 950 now. compromise. And the vendors go, that's exactly what happened in the last 2 sales. And I go, I know, because you didn't actually employ a negotiator, you employed a compromiser or a belter. And they go, right. So you know what the buyer says when you go back to them and say, look, 900%, so you're going to tell the vendor not to take it? Yeah. Why? Because I'm going to look like an idiot on Saturday when I go, you should take the offer at 9, you should take the offer at 9, you should take the offer at 9, and then someone rolls in and does pay $1 million. Oh, okay. So what would your next offer be? And they go, what would it be?
975.
975. Great. Awesome. All right. I appreciate that. Can I ask you a question? It probably sounds a bit silly. If I get an offer over the next day or two, because I got a few private inspections during the week, over $1 million, do you want me to call you, or are you okay if I just go and sell it?
Yeah, obviously call me.
All right, well, mate, why invite trouble then? Go there now. Try and take it out before that person does. Because the minute they chuck an offer there, I can't tell you where you need to be. And someone who missed a house over 10 grand last year, if the agent said 50 more, I would have said, I'll save that in marriage counselling, not have my wife angry from open homes. Done. Right? So I can't give you that finish line once that buyer puts that offer in. So, mate, would you go to 1,020,000 if it meant like potentially taking it out?
Can we just start at the 975? Just see what they say.
Look,
like I'm starting to think. Well, I mean, the house has like a few problems. Like it's not that renovate. We're gonna have to spend $100 grand on their building costs have gone up, interest rates. Like, I think 975 is pretty good.
But think about how much money you'll save in chiropractic, Dan. When you're not sleeping on the lounge for the next 6 months because Mrs. put you there because you missed out on number 25 grand.
Yeah. Can we just go back and try at the 975?
I'm more than happy to, but you want me to definitely call you if I get an offer over that?
Yeah.
Okay, no worries at all. Great. I'll send you through the contract. I'll come back to you.
I can sign it. Can you get back to me today with an answer on the 975?
Look, I'll go back to the owner and have a chat. I've just got to ask them whether they want to potentially lock this down now or whether they want to wait for these people to go through tomorrow. So that's their decision. I'm not the decision maker here, right?
Well, they can always come back and like...
Oh, they absolutely can. And they'll obviously ask me my advice and I'll give them that advice based on what's probably going to happen tomorrow, but I'll come back to you regardless. I promise you one way or other, you'll hear back from me this afternoon.
Okay.
Always.
Okay.
Okay. And so at that point, if that buyer was sticking firm at 975, I'd park them. I'll go back and talk to the vendor. In my experience, if a buyer goes from 900 to 975, normally they'll go up over $1 million pretty quickly, particularly if it meant buying it. And again, the key part was, oh yeah, I want you to call me back. That dialogue will not work when our industry actually starts getting back to buyers.
Yeah.
Because they go, you're not like, oh, I want you to get back to me. And in my head, I'm going, in what world would I not go back to you? But sadly, there are a lot of agents that don't.
Yeah.
They just go, got an offer there, I'll take, done. And bless you agents out there that aren't doing that because it means that dialogue works very well. And you have to be in the industry for 20 years to use that.
Yeah.
But go and see what the vendor says. And I'll talk to the vendor. But where most negotiation really breaks down is they go, the vendor wants, the vendor wants, the vendor wants, the vendor wants. I sold a property the other day for 290 grand over what the previous agent had it listed at.
Holy.
Now, was the vendor expectation out of whack on that, or was the previous agent needing of training and improvement?
Well, common sense would say it's probably the agent in this instance.
So the problem is, though, I've seen properties that are fantastic and well priced, but they're actually not moving because the buyer won't pay what the vendor wants. Right?
Yeah.
How many times have you seen an auction where, you have an auction where it goes well over what the vendor wanted because it wasn't about not paying the vendor's price anymore?
Yes.
People just argue with the vendor.
They get it in their head that they're arguing against the vendor. So they think they're paying too much because the vendor's not moving.
Yeah. I love negotiating with mainland Chinese buyers, and I had to deal with them constantly around here in Toowoomba Pilly Solution. There's a lot in my area as well. And I always say, no matter what comes out of your mouth and that buyer rings up and says, what do you reckon on price? The answer is going to be too high, right? So I'm going to go, how much is that property? And I go, 50 cents. But 50 cent?
Yeah.
No, not 50 cent. And they'd be like, how about 25 cents? Right? They'd still try to negotiate because that's how they negotiate. Right?
Yeah.
I don't have any issue with that.
Yeah.
Right? I had one ring me up the other day and I went banana. And they said too high. Wait, did you say banana? I said, yeah, because no matter what I was going to say, you're going to say too high. And they just laughed.
Yeah.
Right? I get it. And I love them. They're great. And they're one of the most ferociously loyal advocates you can ever have, the Chinese buyers. I love them and the sellers. But it's a case of whatever the vendor wants, it's backwards from there. But if you take the vendor out of the equation, if you can make you the bad guy.
Yeah, you're the bad guy. Yeah, exactly. That's the biggest thing.
Your vendor is an issue. Go get your vendor in the line.
Yeah.
No, I'm telling the vendor not because I'm looking like an absolute muppet when someone does come in and pays $1.020 million.
Yeah. That's the big key here about negotiation is you're the bad guy.
Yep.
Yeah. I need to give the vendor honest advice about what I believe the price will be worth. And when I went in and I did the comparable sales, I told them to price it there, and then I'm going to get it sold there. And I know I will.
Yep. And you know what? from week to week, the market fluctuates, and I can say 2 or 3 to sell. Or you know what? That buyer's been watching it for the last 4 weeks, sells their house at auction on the weekend, all of a sudden they come through and go bang, and it happens all the time. The real question we need to answer is, 1, do you want the house? And then 2, are you okay to lose it? The dumbest phone call, and Samantha was putting my phone number down for callbacks and a lot of property she was looking at, and they go, what would you like to pay for the property? Oh, as little as possible, thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
What a dumb follow-up question. That's probably what 90% of the industry gets told to say, right?
Yeah.
At what number are you willing to lose it at? That's the only question you ever answer.
Beautiful. What's the best piece of advice you can give to an agent to become a highly successful agent? It's a tough one.
It really is. I mean, there's so many answers to that question, right?
Yeah.
The best way I can answer it is, if I went back to myself on my very first day of real estate, I'd say go and work in an environment where you're nurtured, you're supported, and start creating your own brand early. That would be my biggest advice. Outside of that, learn, and hunt down every great experienced agent you can and talk to them. I owe so much of my success to Andrew Dean, who taught me so much without even working with him. Great agents are very open and sharing because they don't care. They've got nothing to lose. But they're more open than you can. So hunt down every good agent you can find and learn from them regardless of brand, because they've all got a different way of doing it, particularly the ones that are not in your area, because they don't care if you kill it. It's not going to affect them anyway.
Everything what you're saying is making sense, and I could talk about this for so much longer. I'm going to have to get you back on another episode because we've run out of time today, but we've had some really great key points there about how to be a great negotiator in real estate, not just for the seller's price, which you have to be good at, but also holding your own price, protecting your commission, your value out there as a real estate agent. Tristan Rowland, you're an absolute king at what you do, mate. I really appreciate you coming in today and sharing your wisdom. There was heaps and great nuggets in there. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning into the Get Keen podcast. If today's episode inspired you, please show your support with a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And make sure you subscribe on your favorite platform too. Don't stop there. Join our community of forward thinkers by connecting with me on social media at Dan_Lee_Plum. I'm looking forward to exploring more strategies and insights with you on your journey to the top. Until next time, keep getting keen.